Hello humans, welcome to Game Development Operations from start to finish. And today we're going to be talking about the setting up the Perforce version control engine onto the Google Cloud platform. Now if you're using another platform, that's fine. I just can't show it to you because I never use anything else, and to be fair, I think Google is the most stable option you can go with. So we're going to go ahead and set this right up. So first thing you're going to do is start up your browser. You're going to type in Google Cloud Platform. So here's are the results. You're going to go onto Google cloud.google.com and you're going to click try it for free. Now this is going to give you 60 days for free and $300 of credit for these 60 days, so you can experiment. But what you need to do here is you're going to say no. Obviously, a lot of people don't want these offers and stuff on their email, and you're going to click yes and agree and continue. Set up your I don't know, Zambia, maybe your country of origin is, and click agree and continue. Now, if you're serious about this stuff, you would have had a business account set up by now and a company name. So go ahead and punch these details in at the end of this form. They're going to ask you for your business card number so they can drain payments out of it. Obviously, they're not going to do it without your permission, but at least this is how they're going to verify that you're a real person and a real business. Now, I'm not going to fill this up because I've already done this for my account, and I'm just going to click on console. This is your access point for all the stuff you're having. And once you log in here, you're going to have an empty spot here because you need to create a project. Now, I've already created one project, but you basically click create project and create the project of your choice. And you know, this is how you log in here. Now the project, this is how the tree works. Okay, the project is the overarching governing unit of everything you do here. Okay, you're gonna click on products and services on the right, and as you can see, you've got app engine, compute engine, container, blah blah blah, SQL, databases, storages, Stackdriver, monitoring tools, right? All of this is part of the same architecture. So if you have storage, for example, a database, it's going to be accessible. You will be able to talk to it through all of these. So if you have a compute engine, you might have a database separately, right, instead of setting it up on the engine. And this is basically a virtual machine, okay? So if you got some storage, and you can hook it up to the virtual machine, and that way you're going to have the extra space. You can have it communicate with each other. So what you're going to do now is you're going to click compute engine, and you're going to have an empty spot here. Right, and we're going to create a VM instance, which is a virtual machine instance. I'm going to call it control. All right, just call it version control, whatever you want to call it. Select the region you're in. I'm currently in Europe, so I'm going to select Europe. There's you can click here to learn more. You can click here to learn more about which regions have what, like -C, -B, -D. These have different capabilities. For example, -B does not have international support as far as I remember. And then you're going to select the type of machine that you want. Now, you don't want anything fancy. As I've already told you, the Perforce server doesn't need a lot of resources. I started with a micro, but it turns out that, you know, it's a little bit too small. So a small is fine. I think that's what you'd be aiming for. Obviously, you can customize how much memory it has, but to be honest, like, you know, how much memory and how much CPU, you can actually later down the line have a custom setup, right? If you click over here, I think there's a possibility for a custom CPU. Custom machine. Well, there was a way, but you don't need it anyway, right? And then the boot disk is basically the operating system. In other words, the image that's going to be booted, loaded, and installed. We're going to use CentOS 7 because that's the usual operating system of choice for servers. Some of these are paid, obviously. The Windows Server, the Red Hat Enterprise, these are all licensed. So that's going to cost you a premium every month. In case of Windows Server, that's another $30 a month. Obviously, the advantage is here that you can actually connect through a remote desktop protocol and actually remotely view your computer, whereas when it comes to CentOS and Linux, unless you install a GUI module, you know, you'll be stuck to the command line. But you know, you don't really need that stuff because the command line, there's only a couple of commands that you need to set this up, and after that you're not really going to touch it. So I'd say 20 gigs initial size of a hard drive is definitely, you know, like you'd be fine with 20 gigs. Okay, now the next thing you need to do is Obviously, you can set up the access scopes here. So as I've already mentioned, you can set default access, which I'm not entirely sure what the default one is, but default full access is obviously to each API from here, right? You got SQL, big table, data store, blah, blah, blah. Or you can use this to set access for each API and select which one in particular do you want. So don't worry about this. You can set this up later. You can edit it, you know, so there's not a big deal. You're going to click create. And we're going to have to wait for Google to set this up for us. And while we're doing that, we should open the Perforce Administrator Manual. All right, these are the fundamentals basically, right? Now this is for 15.1. I believe our release was 16.2. Yes, that's right. Otherwise, the other way you could approach this, if you don't know what version you're running, you just go to Perforce, you click support here, documentation, and you just go in Helix Administrator Guides and click the HTML. Sorry, this is the command line reference. You need the fundamentals. Click the HTML of the PDF, whichever one you prefer. Close this out if you want. And we're going to go and set this up to installing and upgrading the server. Linux package-based installation, that's what you need to click. Now the reason for this is because you need to set up some repositories in order for your operating system to actually be able to download this stuff, right? So what you're going to do here is right, just leave this in for now, and while this is installing, oh wait, it's already installed. Okay, so what we're going to do is you're going to click the SSH button here. Actually, before that, my bad, before that, we need to actually set up the network availability for this instance here. So you're going to click on networking, and you're going to create a, sorry, not a network. You got to go to firewall rules and create a firewall rule. Now we need to get the port. Remember, the port was 1666, okay? This is the port that your computer will be actually having an SSL connection through to your instance here. So we're going to set this version Perforce, and we're going to say version control rule set. So this is just the rule set for connecting to your version control. You need the source filter to be any source, because you don't know who's going to be connecting unless you have a particular IP, or you can use instance tags, you know, if you want to connect from other instances. Now the protocol that Perforce is using is the TCP protocol, and obviously the port is 1666. Finish this with a semicolon, and click create. All right, now we have access. You know, our virtual machine is going to have access here. Just wait for it to set up, and anyone with you know, with an internet connection and the right password, obviously, because you'll set up the password later, will be able to connect to your version control machine. And as such, you'll be able to work as a team. This is taking longer than I thought. So while this is happening, you're just going to Google Google Cloud documentation. Click on the documentation page, and you're going to search for Cloud SDK. And this is the stuff that you're going to download, but we'll talk about this later. Just open this page for now. All right, this should be ready by now. Yes, it is. And final but not least, we need to actually set up you know, the address, the IP address. This is I was running a test here to see what the problem was. I ran into a problem last time I was doing, so just you can delete this, or you can I forget it. Just call it ephemeral, or just even delete it. Yeah, release static address. You won't have this, you know, this was just for from a previous thing I was running. Right, so you're going to click static because you want this IP to be constant, and you're going to call it Perforce IP lowercase, obviously. All right, not IO, but IP. And you're going to click reserve, and at this point, this is your external IP address, okay? Just copy this, you know, just to have it in your not the cache, but the clipboard, right? You have it on the clipboard. Anyway, back to the versioning engine. You're going to go to Compute Engines here, and you're going to click SSH. Now this is going to establish a secure connection to your virtual machine, and basically going to open up the console. so you have access to your Linux command lines. All right. Now, if you haven't used Linux, that's fine. I haven't used it myself. I'm not a big user of it. Obviously, for personal desktops, most people use Windows. If you're familiar, there's going to be nothing fancy here. But if you're not, just follow along. You know, there's only 3 or 4 commands that you need to run. So first, you need to actually have administrator privileges, which means running this from the root. So what you're going to do is you're going to click SU, type SU, and click Enter. Oh wait, we first need to set up password, my bad. 1 second. So we first need to set up a password for the super user. So type this, press enter, and it's going to require a password. Now this is just a test, so I'm going to use 1234. It's going to tell you that this is a bad idea, but just forget about it. 1234 is the password. So the password has been changed, and now you press SU and enter. It's going to ask you for the password 1234, the one we already defined. Click and press enter, and now see we're running as root. All right, this means that we got, even as you see, the $sign changed into the hashtag, the hash key. So it's that means you're running as an administrator. Okay, now at this point we need to install the Perforce versioning engine, and this is when we're going to go and jump into this thing here. And you can read along, but essentially what you need to do is you need to create a file in this directory and name it like this. And the default file editor, text editor in CentOS and Red Hat is something called Vim. I'm not sure what why it's so fancy, but just the command for this is vi, and then you can just type in /etc yum.perforce, oh sorry, my bad, yum.repo.d/perforce.repo. Okay, this is going to create a new file. Now here you can actually copy and paste this. This is the whole idea behind this, right? So you're going to copy and paste this. Come on, this used to work. Control A. Okay, whatever, just Control V here. Right, now you're going to click press escape in order to exit the the fancy mode. Type :x, semicolon X, right? And no, not semicolon, just, you see it over here, right? This is what you type. Press enter. This is going to save the the file, and it's basically created with all, we just created the definition for the repo. And now we need to actually import it and get the thing. So you're going to click, you just copy this URL with all this fancy stuff, okay, and paste it here and run it. This should run the command. It's already done. And now that you have all of this set up, we need to actually install the package. Package installation is done with yum, or for Ubuntu it's apt-get, but yum is better because it installs all the dependencies. In this case, P4D actually has these other dependencies. So what we're going to type is yum install helix, assuming we don't have any typos on the way, P4D, enter. Okay, so this is going to fetch all the stuff that's needed, all the signatures, like whatever, basically all the files that you're going to need. Once it's done, it's going to report and tell you which dependencies are also required and which dependencies also will be installed. Just give it a second here. Obviously, we're running on a smaller CPU, so there it is. Total download size this, and then the installation size is going to show you which dependencies are also going to be installed atop this. So you basically say yes, enter. It's going to download all the packages. Obviously, Google has a massive download speed. Look at this, just whatever, doing it really fast, and now it's complete. Okay. Now back to this document right here. We're going to follow along with the post-installation configuration. Now you can do this the manual way if you want, but really I think this is the the fastest way to do it. Just copy this command here, which is another super user command. Click this, and now you're in the interactive mode. Now the Perforce service name is basically the name of the service. Remember when we were doing the local one? As you can see, we're running a Perforce service. So this is the same thing, but running on Linux. So let's just call it Perforce service, or just call it Perforce. Now we need to define the server root, which is fine like this, right? The server is fine. You don't have anything else. You don't really need anything else. Create the directory. Now the Unicode mode, you'd best leave it to no unless you know what you're doing. The case sensitivity is fine. Server address is obviously SSL 1666, which is fine. Super user login. I don't know. Let's call it. Who should I use here? You guys got any ideas? Let's go with barbarian, because that's what we are. We're all barbarians. All right, so barbarian, and the password is 1234. 12345678. Okay, QWER capitals 1234. There we go. QWER capitals 1234. Okay, this is all set up, configured. Server is done. Right. This is very nice for this reason, but there's one thing that's left to do here, okay, and that is to set up the type map. In other words, we got to tell, and actually we're gonna have to do this for you're gonna have to do this for the local version of Perforce as well. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna type down UE4 Perforce type map, right? And it's basically going to take you to the documentation to showing you how to set it up. But essentially what you're going to do is you're going to type P4, in the local version of this, you're going to actually do this on your command line, right? Since since this is not the local version we're talking about right now, you're going to do this in this console. All right, so what you're going to do here is you're going to type P4/P capital, and you're going to say this is the password we used, 1234, and type map. So type map has been opened. Now all we got to do is just copy this stuff here. All right, copy this and just insert it here. Oops, like so. This was not the best. Maybe I should have perhaps I should have used an enter command here. Yeah, let's tab it out and back once. Fuck. All right, this way. All right, now this is all set up. Just click press escape and obviously save and exit again. This is the command here, and press enter, and type map is saved. So we're basically good to go. Now we can close this. Don't worry, leave. And all that's left to do is to connect to your instance, right? So we already copied the external IP. Hopefully, is it copied? No, it's not copied. Damn it. So copy this and open up your P4 admin. Now that remember that we did the local thing. It's still connected here, but we're gonna add the external connection as well. Open connection, and we're gonna say this is the IP. Yeah, this is the port, and you just have to define this as SSL. The username was barbarian, and you're gonna connect. No such server because there's a space. I'm gonna connect here, and obviously it's gonna ask you to establish a fingerprint or whatever. Just trust this fingerprint. Click connect, and it's gonna ask you for the password, which is QWER1234. Click enter, and we are connected. Right here, you can do the exact same thing as you're doing here. So you can collect a depot. You can connect, make a depot, or delete this one, and create the one that you need. You can add users. For example, Barbarian is the current super user, but you can create a group, right? Well, you need a new group first. So we'll talk about this in the next video when I actually show you how to use all this stuff, right? That's it, guys. As you can see, it's not that long. It's not that hard to set up, and it's pretty easy. One last thing before we finish, you can remember this Cloud SDK thing. So you can download the installer for Windows or for whatever it is there, and it's going to enable you to use the exact same things to basically work on your virtual machine, right? Remember these? So all of this, like the SSH and the connections, could be done with Cloud SDK. So you download it and install it, and essentially it will enable you to use gcloud commands from your console here, and it will basically send all these commands over to Google to execute on your instance. It's best after you install it to view the documentation and see how this stuff works. But you can click here to see how to actually quick start it. I've already done this, so like the installing the SDK, etc. I've already done this, so this would be redundant for me, so that's why I'm not going to show it to you. And it's quite simple to follow along, actually, these tutorials here. What you're going to do after that, though, is going to click on the G-Cloud reference, click on compute, and here you see all the commands and the operations you can perform from your from your console, right? For example, the SSH is your connection, so this is how you connect. You just type in G-Cloud compute SSH, your username, and the instance, right? So it'd be something like this. You have G-Cloud compute SSH, your user, in this case Barbarian, and you're gonna have well, if you need it anyway, you're gonna need the instance, which was what was it? It was version, so the instance is version, and then the region, which was Europe dash West dash C, right? So that's all good. So you shouldn't really worry about this. Another way to do this is I'll include a link to this bat file. I wrote a simple bat file. So as you can see, there are no, there's nothing fancy here. I mean, there's no viruses or anything. So you can use this to actually, start, terminate, as in stop it, set up the zone. In other words, which zone this is running into, and obviously you can connect to your server without having to run all these, commands. Yeah. So that's it, guys. I don't think there's anything else, anything I missed. So if you guys have any problems, just follow the tutorial one more time, unless obviously it's so outdated that the process is different, though I highly doubt that. All right, now in the next video, we'll finish up showing up how to set up the, if your local host, for example, how to host from your local machine. In other words, how to open a port for 1666 from your router, which will essentially help you to do the same thing instead of the virtual machine, running it on your machine. So there's that. And we're going to set up the type map here for the local as well. All right, guys, that's it from me. I'll see you in the next video. Peace. I'm out.